Okay guys, so I'm making this video on election night. I hope everybody's being safe out there. And in Austin the other day, we had an incident which is very typical of things that unfortunately kids in a lot of neighborhoods in Chicago stumble upon or see when they're on their way to school, and leaves them traumatized. The police show up and look at these type of things and it leaves them traumatized, and it's very disturbing stuff that is seen a lot of times, oftentimes in alleys, behind houses. And that is dead bodies, especially dead bodies that are chopped up. And I had done a story before about the bodies of babies that were chopped up, found in the lagoon in Garfield Park. But this time, we were also on the west side in the Austin community, and one of them was dismembered and chopped up in an alley, and an arrest has been made now. A man has been charged with stabbing and dismembering a person after remains were found in alleys in Austin on the west side. This does not appear to be any gang-related thing. The guy was older. A man was charged Tuesday in the fatal stabbing and dismemberment of a person whose remains were found over 5 days in alleys close to the suspect's home in Chicago's Austin neighborhood. A guy named Judson Taylor, 56, was charged with felony counts of first-degree murder, dismembering a human body, concealment of a homicidal death, and abuse of a corpse, according to Cook County court records. So charging documents say that Taylor repeatedly stabbed the male victim and then knowingly dismembered, severed, separated, dissected, and mutilated the body before hiding the parts. City trash collectors initially came across the lower half of a man's body last Wednesday over in the 4900 block of West Washington Boulevard. So that's about a block west of Cicero on Washington. And that's a very hot neighborhood, man. It's a neighborhood that you guys have seen me go past in a lot of my videos, man, because I used to be driving on Cicero Avenue a lot when I had the car. And that, you know, all the streets that are named after presidents, Jackson, Monroe, Polk, along Cicero, very, very, very hot. That's like the border of West Garfield Park in Austin. And so according to Chicago police and a law enforcement source, that's where, you know, the incident was taking place. So police later reported that remains were discovered Saturday in a trash can in the 100 block of North LeClaire, just blocks from where the first discovery was made. So a source said that part of a torso was pulled from the garbage. And a day later, officers found human arms inside of a dumpster in the nearby 5000 block of West Washington Boulevard. So that's only about a block west of that. And a spokesperson for the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office said the agency had opened separate investigations into some of the remains. So whether or not these are all from the same person, I don't know. But whether or not there are multiple victims, you know, we'll find out soon. But West Side, I mean, this is where the most disturbing stuff happened. You guys remember I had reported on that kid from Austin, and I'd actually interviewed some of his bigger homies. He wasn't a gang member from what I knew, but he was a student at one of the high schools where I used to sub over at Steinmetz. But he lived in the Austin community on the west side, and he was a 15-year-old, and his body was found like burned inside of inside of a trash can. It was just like gruesome what had happened to him. One thing that I'll say, you know, if anybody is outside at night in Austin, and really even in the daytime in, you know, Austin, Garfield Park, any of these areas, I would always have multiple people with me, man. Like, you know, I'm not going out nowhere alone out there. I mean, I do go places alone out there. I mean, you guys will see me going places alone out there, but like, you know, I don't have, you know, family or anything. I mean, if I had like kids to take care of and everything, like, man, I'd always have people with me. I mean, in most places, I just give that advice to women. Like, you know, don't go outside alone, have other people with you. And when I say other people, I don't mean another woman. You know, like, unless you both are, you know, trained, like, law enforcement professionals, you know, and all that kind of thing. Like, that's one thing. But, I mean, like, somebody who can, you know, like, take on somebody, you know, because it ain't worth it. It's not worth it. You know, you need to go to the store and grab something, or you feel like going to the mall and just, you know, hanging out over there. It's not worth, I mean, that's the type of world we're living in over here, you know, until people can move out, which is something I highly recommend doing, of that neighborhood. You know, people got to take safety precautions, man. But how this came to happen to this guy, I don't know. But yeah, some of the stuff that happens out west is just insane, man. At any rate, man, rest in peace to the victim. I don't know what this was over, but it does not appear to be any gang-related thing. We had a club close downtown recently. It was called Club Hush in the River North area, and the alderman, you know, was asking for this because the clubs in River North. River North is one of the most high-end, expensive areas of the city of Chicago, but there's these nightclubs down there that attract a lot of drama. And there was an Assyrian guy, a Middle Eastern guy, 30 years old. His name was Arsen Salaka. He was actually from West Rogers Park. He lived off of Howard in the West Rogers Park neighborhood, who was just killed over there in an incident where it's like a fight. I don't know if it was a fight or just like a verbal altercation that escalated, and he got shot outside of that club. Speaking of the Assyrian community, they also arrested a guy in the case of the store clerk over on Devon Avenue. And, like that guy's relative was saying, the guy wanted to fight back. The Arsen Salaka situation, I don't know if he was fighting or not, but one thing I'll just say about the Assyrians, and my condolences to their community. There's a lot of them in that area where you guys have seen me in a lot of videos around Mather High School over by Peterson in California. And then there's a lot of them too, like in the suburbs around Skokie, like Niles West High School, Niles North, that have big Assyrian populations. And like I was saying, in my video about the substitute teaching, some of them gangbang and some of them don't. But one thing about Assyrian culture, and I will say this, and some people might take this as criticism, but I'm giving it more as constructive criticism, because this is something that they have in common with my own culture. And this is something that I actually consider to be like a weakness more than a strength. Anybody who's dealt with us, or I'd say the Italians too, the Assyrians, like, we all kind of have this culture of machismo where, we're kind of raised, not necessarily by our parents, but just by the culture in general from birth, like not to walk away from stuff. Like if somebody disrespects us, or if somebody wants to get on that with us, to stand your ground and come right back at them with an equal force. Like that guy in the convenience store, the example, I'm not going to give the whole long speech that I gave in that video where he died. I believe that a lot of guys would still be alive if it wasn't for that. I understand, where that's coming from. A lot of these groups, they've been occupied by other nations and been oppressed, and some of that machismo is like coming back at that, that revolutionary spirit or whatever. But J. Cole came out with a song, I think with Lil Baby, not too long ago, called Pride is the Devil, and it left so many RIPs. Like, this is an example of that, man. And I'm not saying the store clerk was doing that because of pride or whatever, but just that cultural tendency in general, man, I think that's something we would be better without. And, much love and respect to all the Assyrians out there. I know a lot of Assyrians personally. A lot of good friends that are Assyrian, and we're very culturally close to them, us Greeks. But yeah, that thing, we got to learn when to just let something go, and just when to, pick and choose our battles. You know what I mean? Because to try and get on that with everybody that tries to disrespect us or come at us, or you got to know when to just give it up, because this stuff is not worth our life. It's not. That guy, he could have had another 20, maybe 30 years of living to do. And I don't know what happened outside this club with this Arsen Salaka guy, but yeah, guys got to know when to walk away. Because, the family, I think this guy had kids. And I know that guy in the convenience store had kids. Our families are people that are depending on us financially. And I don't have anybody that's depending on me financially, but I'm saying people that do. We owe it to them, to put them first, and, toss that pride out, man. That's just my little generic criticism, though. But whether these situations in particular, I don't know if it was that. But rest in peace to Arsen Salaka, man. And as far as that club closing, this has happened to a lot of clubs and a lot of restaurants in Chicago. There was a restaurant in my neighborhood where there had been a shootout, and there had been several fights. And this is like on a residential block. And it was a black guy who had opened a nightclub over there, and I was happy for him. He was happy that he had made it to, the north side of Chicago and was able to open this club up here. But there was so much drama happening at this club. It was open into the late night hours. This thing was serving liquor, and those type of establishments attract street guys. They just do. They attract street guys, and you don't want to attract those type of guys. He was accusing the city of racism for closing his place, but Arab corner stores, restaurants that are not black owned, that are owned by other races, have been closing all over the city for the same things. And some of The people on the other side of the conversation were pointing out there's black-owned businesses in the area that are doing just fine because they don't attract that type of clientele. Like there's a black-owned business in my neighborhood that serves breakfast. It brings in families, you know, with kids, like black families and everything, and there's never a problem. You gotta pick and choose your clientele, man. A late night spot that serves liquor is a no-no. You know, it's just a no-no, period, point blank. This club, and I agree with the alderman, all these clubs that attract that type of clientele, they gotta go. They just gotta go. Out west, we also had several other shootings over the weekend, man. And in West Garfield Park, over in the 200 block of North Karlov, at about 11:30 a.m. on Sunday, a 16-year-old boy was hurt in a shooting. But I said after that, you know, that mass shooting where 14 people were hit, the police, you know, after something like that, that's getting a lot of attention, and police are, you know, deep over there now trying to find out, you know, who did that. But, you know, nobody's talking, okay, so far, at least as far as I know, nobody's talking. So when nobody's talking, you know, then a lot of times the streets handle this stuff, whether it's gang related or not, and some of the stuff out west is not. But you know, you always got to brace for the after effect. And that's why I say, you know, anybody with kids over there, man, that's one of those areas where, like, there's multiple cycles. You know, it's not just one cycle. There's like multiple cycles all over the place, and there's new cycles starting up all the time. And these cycles get passed down. A lot of times the kids out west don't even know the guys that they're into it with. You know, they just get this passed down, like, from the older generation. Like, we don't rock with that side. Like, and then they go over there, you know, to get some stripes with the older homies, do something, and now they do have a reason to be on it with him. So, you know, the kids get caught up in this, and it's not even about, like, a lot of times I hear the older folks saying, like, they hate each other and stuff. A lot of times these guys don't even know each other to hate each other. Like, they can't hate each other because they don't even know each other. So, you know, it's just, it's like inherited beef. And a lot of these guys, they don't even know who they're shooting at. So, yeah, a neighborhood like that, there's only one way to deal with that, and that's to take off. But, and I know people that are doing that, like women, you know, that are doing that, saying we're out of here. Some of them have moved to other states. And yeah, we've lost a lot of population from those neighborhoods over the past 10 years. And there was another shooting where several teens were hit over on 76 and Walcott on the south side. What that was about, I don't know, man. But some of the victims over there, I think one of the victims over there was 15. And then there was also a 15-year-old boy found shot to death in Little Village on the southwest side. That's a Mexican neighborhood. Whether he was anything, or, you know, whether it was, you know, just wrong place, wrong time, I don't know. But officers responding to shots fired about 1:40 a.m. in the 3000 block of West 23rd found a kid named Salvador with a gunshot wound to the head, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. So 1:40 a.m. in Littleville, out on the street, you know, you're asking for it. You're asking for it like that. That's definitely not a time to be out there. Somebody in a black SUV had fired shots and then fled the scene. So Littleville is a battleground too. Little Village, man. As far as Hispanic neighborhoods, I would say that's the second. I'd say that's the second most violent Hispanic neighborhood on the south side after Back of the Yards, and then in the city, I would say it's West Humboldt Park. The Puerto Ricans over in, like, the western part of Humboldt Park, you know, that kind of are mixed in with, like, the black area around, like, Chicago Ave. That's probably the most violent Hispanic area. But then, you know, Back of the Yards and Littleville are not far behind that. There was a gang-related shooting at a party on the southwest side in a typically quiet neighborhood in Archer Heights. This was over by 51st and Colon. There was a birthday party. There was a verbal altercation, and members of an opposing gang, they said, began shooting. So whether or not they had two gangs at this thing, I don't know, but definitely having two rival gangs at a birthday party would be a big no-no. I don't know if that was the case. From the news reports, it sounded like that, but I don't know if they just rolled up on the scene. I would highly doubt that anybody would do that. But you know, I'm talking about, like, set a birthday party up like that. I don't think that was probably the case. But a 51-year-old man was shot in the arm, and he's okay. A 34-year-old man was also shot in the arm, and he's okay. and another 52-year-old was shot in the arm and hip, and he's okay. So 5 people in all were shot, and I don't know what happened to the other 2. But a suburban police officer was shot on the south side. This, I think, was a female cop, 51 years old. She was driving to work in the 2300 block of East 103rd at about 5:30 p.m. Somebody in a white Chevy sedan kept on trying to stop the police officer while keeping her vehicle from passing the other person. That's when a weapon was pointed at the driver's side of the officer's vehicle, and a number of rounds were fired. The other car then crashed into another vehicle. A passenger got out and continued shooting at the cop. So this was an attempt on the cop's life. The Chicago police said the officer fired back, also hitting the suspected shooter. The officer was struck in the neck, and she was treated for a superficial wound and then released. So luckily it was just like a graze wound. So luckily that police officer is okay. But what that was, man, I don't know. That's scary. I mean, something like an attempted hit, but I don't know if they knew it was a cop or not. I don't know if it was mistaken identity or something personal or what, but that sounds crazy. 35 people shot and all 5 people killed over the weekend. The one that happened on 63rd was not STL or anywhere near there. This was like way to the west of that. This was the 3000 block of West 63rd. This was like 2 blocks west of California on 63rd. That's a totally different neighborhood. Somebody was shot multiple times in the body and then pronounced dead. It was a 44-year-old man. So a lot of people, you know, they hear 63rd. This was not that area of the city, far west of that. So you guys heard all the teens. It's been a disturbing trend. Over the previous weekend, there were 5 teens shot, and this weekend I think there were 4 teens shot. So the teens hanging out late at night, and you know, the parents, I don't know if they're around or what, but they got to make sure those teens are indoors. You know, these 15, these 16-year-olds, these are not babies. You know, in gangland, these are not babies. A 15-year-old is a grown man in gang years. You know what I'm saying? So they got to be inside, because if they're outside, they're somebody's target. You know, unfortunately, just off of where they stay at. They might be a good boy, they might be a straight-A student, they might be on the basketball team. It doesn't matter. They're somebody's target. Just from where they're at that age. I would say anything over 12 in Chicago, they're somebody's target just off of where they stay at. I'm probably going to be going, somebody had asked me, had done a request to do lives on here, to go live on YouTube. I might try doing that at some point in the near future. I got to get to a good Wi-Fi connection. Probably hit up the Dunkin' Donuts or the McDonald's or something and go live over there. But yeah, let me know any questions you guys have, any topics you want me to discuss in that. Your boy, when you see a report, I'm out.